Working with Ron Howard is fantastic. It's the best because he is, in the truest sense of the word, a director. He is very decision-based. He knows what he likes. He knows what he doesn't like. And when you're working with directors, it doesn't matter if you're working on a huge narrative film or a tiny independent documentary or anything in between, you want people who are decisive. Even if they get it wrong, they'll recognize it and they'll correct course and they're open to collaboration. But I think that is the true mark of Ron. He's very open to collaboration, but he's decisive. And I'm telling you, no one appreciates that more than me. I'm a documentary guy, and I love entering a world I don't know much about. And I didn't know anything about opera really when I began. And I think anyone who's at the top of their game is a compelling person. Anyone who's fought and held a passion in their heart for something so dear that they've dedicated themselves to a craft, I think is very compelling. Not to mention just the human frailties of life that we all go through. So it's both a universal story and something so unique because he had, such a unique talent. So to be able to explore that, I think is fantastic. When writing documentaries, it's a lot about structuring. You're trying to create a structure that matches a narrative film. 3 acts, the up and down of emotional arcs, the way an audience kind of engages with a film is through high contrast, right? To be really up and then to be very sad and then be very excited. In Pavarotti, I guess the biggest challenge was just knowing that to really get at his talent, his specifically early talent, the launch of his career, was to get invested in opera. And that's not something that you can do in a minute. You can't just hear a phrase of Pavarotti singing. You need to hear and see him perform for a longer stretch. It was absolutely vital that we had that we were partners basically with his family members and his loved ones and the people that are dear to him, because you're trying to tell an authentic story, and no one knows the man better than those who spent their lives with him. I think one of the great treasures of the film is probably the opening of the film, and I think probably everyone who worked on the film is going to say the same thing, because it's so rare. It was shot on a video camera by one of his friends in a time before iPhones, before it was easy to capture, events like that. And it's him in a little opera house in Brazil, near the Amazon forest in Brazil, Nowhereville, where Caruso once sang, this great legend of recording, the first great kind of popular artist of the vinyl age and radio age. And so he knew Caruso had sang there, and he went out of his way to get to this opera house just to stand on that stage and sing some of the same material. And to see it, him in kind of casual wear, sweatpants, standing on a stage, just opening his mouth and having that beautiful voice come out and fill that room is amazing to watch. I hope this film crosses the boundaries between opera fans and a new generation or a younger generation, or people like me who just didn't go to the opera. I think that was clearly our challenge and our ambition. And if Pavarotti were alive today, that he would be fully backing our challenge, because that was his goal, is to take opera out of the opera house and bring it to the people. And if we can do that in some small way, I think that we'll be, in our own minds, hugely successful. I hope that audiences come to understand that he was a man, that he was a human. Sometimes we look at these people in our culture with special gifts, whether they're in the arts or in sports, and we see them as kind of godlike. And Pavarotti, I think part of the magic of his voice is that it symbolizes all of our human frailties, all of our vulnerabilities. And so I hope that they see him for who he was, and that's a beautiful man who had faults but also had great gifts and great generosity. having seen a lot of footage of Pavarotti and that big smile and that very kind of charismatic and charming personality of his, I would like to think that if he saw the film, he would roar in the funny parts and he'd cry in the sad parts, and he would say, "We got it right."